Okay, so for this one, I want to move a little bit away from the United States situation. There'll be a lot of talking points around that, no doubt. But I want to move a little bit away from that and look at a more global situation regarding these killings. Notwithstanding my new top, this is American design, but anyway, um, I'm thinking about this argument that the situation in America is out of control, so the global protests are in solidarity with what's happening in the United States. Now, if global protests occur, and they already have in European capitals, apparently they've spread to Sydney, um, but that opens up debate in other countries about the issues. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm okay with that. But if it's just focused on the situation in America, like let's have these global protests to show solidarity with black men in America. I've somewhat got issue with that because it's not showing the whole picture. And I'm going to read out some statistics here from Wikipedia, but this is actually called, and I'll put a link underneath the video. List of killings by law enforcement officers by country. Okay, so this gives the actual figures, the ratio, and the year listed. Now, there are four countries higher than the United States. Brazil. Brazil is a staggering toll. 6,160 people were killed by security forces. That's including the military and intelligence agencies, I should say. It's not just the police. In the year 2018, 6,160. Venezuela is extremely high. 5,287 um, in the year 2018. The Philippines very high, 3,451 in 2016-17. And Syria, which of course is a war zone, 1,497. Then the United States, 933 deaths recorded in 2019. The US is followed by Nigeria, 841. El Salvador, which is a small country, very high rate there, 609. Afghanistan, 606. Pakistan, 495. Bangladesh 466, South Africa 436, and the Democratic Republic of Congo 389. That's sort of the top 10 list. Mexico 371. Now, I saw an article comparing the UK to the United States, and that can immediately be thrown out because the UK had three deaths by law enforcement officers in 2019. And just breaking this down, um, one of those, Usman Khan, was the terrorist who attacked Fishmonger Hall. Another one was Trevor Smith in Birmingham, and the info reads firearms officers surrounded a property in Birmingham shortly before 5 a.m. Trevor Smith was killed with one single gunshot and died at the scene. West Midlands police later revealed that following the shooting, a non-police issued firearm was recovered from the property. John Fitzgerald was killed in Coventry in 2019. Armed officers arrived at an address to make an arrest, which resulted in Fitzgerald, who was unarmed, being shot dead. Witnesses reported hearing 4 or 5 gunshots at the property, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. 12 men were arrested at the scene on suspicion of cultivating cannabis. So, that was three deaths in the UK in 2019. Now, I'm not going to say that the British situation is perfect. I believe probably there have been some controversial circumstances in this country, but three deaths in a whole year, and I think most people would support the police killing of the armed terrorist Usman Khan. I certainly do. I believe in a shoot to kill policy in those situations, not necessarily others, but definitely in a situation where you have a rampaging terrorist. But three deaths, 933 in the United States. That's why if Black Lives Matter try to claim it's the same situation here, that's very misleading. Clearly, there's a problem in the United States, no question about it. There's some very ugly things going on there with this violence. There was video of a man basically beaten to a pulp by a mob of black guys, and there was some others involved wearing masks. There's different reports circulating about that. I believe it was in New York City, but the guy was just left crippled on the street, blood pouring out of his head. So there's a lot of probably things going on there that really, it's getting out of hand. But here's my question. If the focus is to be on police shootings, I mean, look at a country like the Philippines, 3,500 deaths in 2016-17. That, of course, will coincide with President Duterte's controversial war on drugs. Now, I made a previous video about Duterte, and I got absolutely vocally attacked by Duterte's supporters. I'm not going to say all Filipinos because Duterte's supporters can't claim that they represent all Filipinos. But this is a bit like Bolsonaro in Brazil. The Philippines is a country with very high crime rates, so people understandably are fed up with crime. And when a strong man comes along, he promises to get tough. It's appealing. Unquestionably, it would be appealing. Problem is, the Philippines war on drugs. There's going to be a lot of deaths there that the security services claim they're just killing drug dealers. But corruption is rife. So how can we be sure that all those people are dangerous criminals? How do we know that there aren't people being killed in police crossfire and then the police just plant weapons on them? And if you're from the Philippines and you're saying, "Oh, that never happens," I would say you're in denial. I would say you're just wanting to avoid the very strong possibility that that is happening for nationalistic pride, or you don't like outsiders commenting on it. But if the whole world's talking about America, it seems valid to me that other countries are discussed as well. And I know in the Philippines that there has been strong opposition to Duterte. Some of them, some of those politicians are themselves being investigated for corruption. Similar story in Brazil. But I don't think it means that you're soft on crime or you're liberal on crime by simply saying that there needs to be real scrutiny of how people are being killed. Extrajudicial killings are not something that should be happening on a regular basis, and I don't think it's a political position to say that. I don't think it's left wing or right wing. At least it shouldn't be. But like I say, the situation in the Philippines, I've had some dealings with Duterte supporters, and they're just as dogged as Trump supporters. They're absolutely, they will not have a word said against their great president. It's pretty nauseating, actually. Um, and another thing, and I run the risk of offending people here, but it has to be said, the Philippines is a very religious country. So I would say to those devout Christians who support Duterte, how do you reconcile that? Isn't it part of the Christian faith to be against violence, to be against murder? So how is it different if an armed criminal kills someone versus a police officer kills someone in crossfire? Why is that any less bad? Or they kill a suspect who is unarmed and then they plant evidence on them. So it seems to me if there's going to be this call for international action, then it should be there should be scrutiny of other countries as well. China and Russia, like I say, will no doubt be taking advantage of this, but China doesn't release its full figures, so we don't know what the true toll is. Believe me, there is police brutality in China as well, um, but it just doesn't get as much scrutiny. That's why I'm skeptical of celebrities at Holly Willoughby just latching onto this thing, and they have these little, I think it's called Blackout Tuesday. You have a little square on your Twitter account, or I think that's what the call is. There was a representative of Black Lives Matter wants British people to do the knee on the front doorsteps akin to the Clap for Our Carers event. So are we now going to be pressured to do this? And if we don't, like if white people don't do it, are they going to be accused of being okay with police brutality? Oh, white silence is compliance. Except it's not silence. It's just a case of, well, we're not looking at the situation as black and white as you are. And I don't mean that as a pun. I mean not as straightforward. So, yeah, I think if there's going to be discussion of this thing at an international level, there are countries where the situation is clearly, it's like basically a war zone in everything but name. I mean, more people die in Brazil cities than in many war zones. Brazil has a severe problem. Venezuela, which socialists and the left love to hail and defend, the odious George Galloway has repeatedly defended it. 5,000 deaths at the hands of the security services in 2018. Over 5,000. So why are we not seeing Antifa calling out what's going on in Venezuela? Could it be because there's a socialist president, Maduro? It's sheer hypocrisy. And I'm not saying there shouldn't be a discussion about what's happening in America. I'm not saying there aren't issues to debate. Of course there are. I'm just saying that perhaps it should be more consistent. I suppose you could argue America should be setting the example, especially when it boasts to be the greatest country in the world. But, if the issue is about a global call to awareness of police killings, then I think it should be, perhaps universally looked at.